My 22M GF 23F is secretly visiting my abusive parents with our son, 3M, and doesn't understand why this upset me. We had a huge fight and I don't know what to do now. I'm 22 years old, and about a week ago, I found out the person I trusted most in the world had been secretly taking our 3-year-old son to the one place I swore he would never go. My parents' house, the same house I ran from the second I turned 18, the same house I cut off completely. No calls, no visits, no second chances, gone. Or at least, I thought they were. Let me explain something first. I didn't have a bad childhood, in the way people casually say it. I had the kind of childhood you don't talk about. The kind you lock away in a mental box, bury deep, and pretend never existed, just so you can function like a normal human being. And for the most part, I did. I got a job, I built a life, I stayed away, and then I met her. She was 20 when we started dating. I was 19, we were young, stupid, and honestly, just trying to survive life. Then she got pregnant, and suddenly, everything changed. I made a decision right then. I wasn't going to be like my father. Not even close. I didn't care if I had to struggle, work double shifts, or give up everything. My kid was going to be safe. Always safe. When our son was born, I remember holding him and thinking, no one is ever going to hurt you. Not the world, not strangers, and definitely not my parents. So I told her, not everything, but enough. I told her I had cut my parents off. I told her I didn't want them anywhere near our child. I told her they would never even know he existed. And she agreed. No hesitation, no argument, just, okay. And I believed her. For 3 years, everything seemed fine. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. Working, raising our kid, figuring life out. We had help too, her parents mostly. My sister sometimes, but never, ever, my parents. Until 3 days ago, it started with a message from my sister. Just a photo, nothing dramatic at first glance. Just my parents' living room, and their dog in the corner. But then she texted, those are his shoes. I stared at the picture again. And yeah, they were my son's shoes, the ones with the little blue stripes on the side. At first, I thought, maybe it's old. Maybe someone else's kid. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But then my sister sent another message. Mom posted this today, and my stomach dropped. I didn't even remember unlocking my phone. I just walked into the living room where my son was playing. Sat down next to him. And tried to sound normal. Hey buddy, where were you yesterday? He looked up at me, smiling. At Grandpa's house. I froze. What Grandpa? He said it like it was obvious. Your daddy. Something inside me snapped, but I kept my voice calm. Oh, when did you go there? He shrugged. A lot. I felt my hands go cold. Who takes you there? Mommy, of course. And what do you do there? He started talking about toys, snacks, a dog, laughing, normal things. Completely normal things, and that's what terrified me the most. Because kids don't understand danger. They don't recognize manipulation. They don't see what's really happening. They just know if someone is being nice. Then I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Does mommy tell you not to tell me? He hesitated, and then said, it's a surprise. That word, surprise. I had to stand up. I couldn't breathe, because I knew exactly what that meant. She didn't just take him there. She taught him to hide it from me. And in that moment, I wasn't just angry, I was terrified, because I don't know what happened in that house when I was a kid. Not fully, not in a way I can explain without feeling like I'm going to fall apart. But I know enough to leave, enough to never go back, enough to swear my child would never step foot there. And yet, he had, multiple times, and I had no idea. I don't even remember waiting for her to come home. I just remember pacing, back and forth, over and over, trying to convince myself there had to be some explanation. Some misunderstanding, something, but deep down, I already knew. When she walked through the door, I didn't even say hello. I just asked, have you been taking our son to my parents? She froze, and that silence, that hesitation, told me everything. What are you talking about? She said, and that's when I lost it. Not screaming, not yelling, just that kind of anger where your voice goes cold. Don't lie to me. She started crying almost immediately. And that made it worse. Because now it wasn't confusion. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was guilt. And then she said it. I was going to tell you. That sentence, I swear, it broke something in me. When I asked, no answer. How many times? She looked down. A few. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because my 3-year-old had already told me the truth. A lot. She tried to explain. Said my mom reached out to her months ago. Said my dad was sick. Said she just wanted to see what they were like. Like I hadn't spent 17 years finding that out myself. Like she knew better. Like I was overreacting. And then she said something that I don't think I'll ever forget. They're not what you described. I just stared at her. Because of course they weren't. Abusive people don't walk around looking like monsters. They don't live in broken houses with warning signs. They look normal. They act normal. They feel normal. That's how it works. That's how they get away with it. And she believed them. Over me. Then I asked the worst question. Have you left him alone with them? She didn't answer right away. And that was enough. But then she whispered, only a few times. That was it. That's when everything inside me just collapsed. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just lying. It wasn't just going behind my back. She had put my son alone with the man I would never trust with any child. Ever. And she didn't even understand why that was unforgivable. That night ended with her crying. Me shutting down. And our son listening to everything. And that's the part one regret the most. Because no matter how angry I was, he didn't deserve that. The next morning, she was gone. Went to her parents' house. Took some of her things. Left mine untouched. But she didn't take our son. Not yet. And now, I'm sitting here, trying to figure out what to do next. Because I don't trust her anymore. Not with him. Not after this. And the worst part, she still thinks I'm overreacting. She thinks nothing happened, so nothing is wrong. But that's not how this works. That's never how this works. And I don't know if I can ever forgive her for not understanding that. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that house. The hallway, the smell, the feeling, and then I'd hear my son's voice in my head. Mommy said it's a surprise. That sentence wouldn't leave me alone. Because that's how it starts. That's always how it starts. By morning, I had already made one decision. No matter what happened between me and her, my son was never going back there again. I didn't care what it took. Around 10 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was her. Can we talk? 3 simple words. Like none of this was catastrophic. Like we were arguing about something normal. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, not at your parents' house. A minute later, why not? We can talk calmly here. I almost threw my phone. Calmly. At the same house where people were already telling her I was overreacting. Where I'd be outnumbered, dismissed, invalidated. No, we talk somewhere neutral, or not at all. She didn't reply for almost an hour. And in that time, my mind kept spiraling. What if she tried to take him? What if her parents got involved legally? What if they painted me as unstable? Because I knew how this looked from the outside. Young dad, raised his voice, has issues with his parents, refuses contact, versus her, young mom, supportive family, stable environment. If this went to court, I didn't know if I'd win. And that scared me more than anything. Finally, she texted back, okay, tomorrow, your sister can watch him. I agreed, because there was no way in hell I was having that conversation in front of our son. The next day felt unreal. Like everything was normal, but nothing was. I dropped my son off at my sister's place. She didn't ask many questions. She just hugged me longer than usual. And that almost broke me. Because she knew, without me saying anything, she knew. Then I drove to meet her. We chose a quiet park. Neutral ground. No parents. No pressure. Just us. Or at least, that was the idea. She was already there when I arrived. Sitting on a bench. Looking tired. For a second, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered my son. And that feeling disappeared. I sat down across from her. Not next to her. Across. There was a long silence. Then she spoke first. I didn't think it would get this bad. I let out a slow breath. This bad. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I thought you'd be upset, but not like this. I leaned forward slightly. You took my son to people I cut off for a reason. You hid it from me. For months. You taught him to lie to me. And you left him alone with them. I paused. And you didn't think it would be this bad. She looked down. I didn't think they were dangerous. There it was again. That sentence. That belief. I told you they were. You told me something happened, she said quickly. But you never told me what. I clenched my jaw. So your solution was to investigate. Behind my back. With our child. That's not fair. No. What's not fair is you thinking you know better than me about my own parents. Her voice got sharper. I met them. I talked to them. They're not how you described. I laughed again. But this time, there was nothing funny about it. You met the version they wanted you to see. They were kind, she insisted. The house was clean. They had food, toys. Yeah, I cut in. That's how it works. She shook her head. You're seeing monsters everywhere. And that's when something inside me just snapped into place. Because that sentence told me everything. She didn't understand. Not even a little bit. I took a deep breath. Slow, controlled. You said you wanted to understand why I'm upset, right? She nodded. Then listen. Don't interrupt. Just listen. She hesitated. Then nodded again. And for the first time in years, I opened that box. I didn't leave that house because I was angry. My voice felt strange, like it didn't belong to me. I left because I had to. She stayed quiet. My dad wasn't just an alcoholic. I paused, hands shaking slightly. He was violent. Her expression shifted a little. And not just yelling or throwing things. I swallowed. I'm talking about the kind of violence you don't forget. She looked uncomfortable now. My sister. You know she has PTSD, right? She nodded slowly. You know he touched her. Her eyes widened slightly. But what you don't know. I stopped. For a second, I almost couldn't say it. Then I forced the words out. He didn't just hurt her. Silence. He hurt me too. The air between us changed instantly. Like everything just froze. She stared at me, completely still. What do you mean? I laughed quietly, not because it was funny. Because it wasn't. I mean exactly what you think I mean. She covered her mouth. No, yes. Her eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you tell me? And there it was. Not. I'm sorry. Not. I understand. Why didn't you tell me? Because I shouldn't have to relive that for you to respect a boundary. She shook her head, crying now. I didn't know. You knew enough. I leaned forward again. You knew he was violent. You knew what he did to my sister. You knew I cut them off completely. My voice got quieter. And you still took our son there. She broke down. I thought it was different now. I thought maybe they changed. They didn't. You don't know that. I do. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Final. Then she whispered. But nothing happened to him. And that was the moment everything ended for me. Because she still didn't get it. I leaned back, staring at her. You're right. She looked up, confused. Nothing happened. I nodded slowly. This time, her face went pale. But you gambled with that. I stood up. You don't get to decide that risk for him. She stood up too, panicking now. Wait. Please. No. My voice was calm again. Too calm. You don't understand what you did. I do now. No. You understand that I'm upset. That's not the same thing. Tears were streaming down her face. I said I'm sorry, and you also said I'm overreacting. She froze. Because she had. And that tells me everything I need to know. I took a step back. I don't trust you anymore. That hit her harder than anything else. You don't mean that. I do. Another step back. And I can't be with someone I don't trust with my child. Her voice broke completely. You're going to leave me. I didn't answer right away. Because part of me, a very small part, still wanted to believe this could be fixed. But then I heard it again. In my head, it's a surprise. And that was it. I think we need to separate. She collapsed back onto the bench. Crying, shaking, and for the first time, I didn't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no love, just empty. I'll figure out the legal side, I added. Custody, agreements, everything. She looked up, terrified. You're taking him from me. No, I shook my head, but I'm making sure this never happens again. I walked away after that. Didn't look back, didn't say anything else, because there was nothing left to say. That night, I picked up my son from my sister's place. He ran up to me like nothing had changed, smiling, laughing, and I held him tighter than I ever had before, because he had no idea how close he came to something I wouldn't have been able to fix. But now, the real fight was just beginning. Because separating is one thing. Custody, that's a whole different war. And I wasn't ready for what was coming next. To be continued. The first night after that conversation was quiet, too quiet, no messages, no calls, no drama, and honestly, that made it worse. Because I knew it wasn't over. Not even close. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls. Not from her, from her mom. I didn't answer. Then a text came through. We need to talk. This has gone too far. I stared at it for a long time. Because I knew exactly what this was. Not concern, not understanding, control. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something I should have done the moment all of this started. I searched for a lawyer. Even typing the words felt surreal. Child custody lawyer near me. Because somehow, my life had turned into that. At 22, I found a few options. Read reviews. Didn't understand half of what I was reading. But one thing became very clear, very quickly. This wasn't going to be simple. And it definitely wasn't going to be cheap. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time, it was her. I answered. Hello. Her voice was quiet, different. My parents want to talk to you. There it was. I'm not talking to them. They're worried. They don't get to be worried. I cut in. Not after this. She hesitated. They think you're overreacting. Of course they did. They think you're trying to take our son away from me. I closed my eyes. I'm trying to protect him. You're making this worse, she said softly. We can fix this without lawyers. No, I said immediately. We can't. Silence. Then she asked something that almost sounded scared. Are you really serious about separating? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Another silence. Longer this time. Then she said, my parents are going to help me get a lawyer. There it was, the moment everything became real. Because now, it wasn't just emotional anymore. It was legal. I swallowed. Okay, you don't sound surprised. I'm not. Her voice cracked slightly. They think I should file for primary custody. That hit hard, but I didn't let it show. Do what you think is right. You don't even care. That question, it almost made me laugh. I care enough to fight for him, I said quietly. And then I hung up. That afternoon, I met with a lawyer. A small office, nothing fancy, but the guy seemed experienced. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, and for the first time since this started, I felt like someone was actually hearing me. When I finished explaining everything, he leaned back in his chair. That's complicated, he said. Yeah, I replied. He nodded slowly. Let me be honest with you. I braced myself. You being the father, at your age, with limited financial support. He paused. You're already at a disadvantage. I felt my chest tighten. But, he continued, that doesn't mean you don't have a case. I leaned forward. What do I need? Proof, he said simply. Proof of what? That your concerns are valid. I hesitated. I don't have records or reports. Nothing like that. He nodded. That makes it harder. Not impossible, but harder. I ran a hand through my hair. So what do I do? He thought for a moment. First, we establish boundaries legally. Like what? A custody agreement, specifically, restrictions on who your child can be around. My heart started beating faster. You think that's possible? If we can demonstrate risk, yes. And if we can't, he didn't sugarcoat it, then it becomes a shared decision. Shared, meaning she could still take him there. Even after everything, I clenched my fists. No, I said under my breath. He leaned forward slightly. I need you to understand something. I looked up. Family courts prioritize stability. I stayed quiet. Right now, she has a stronger support system. I already knew that. But, he added, you have something equally important. What? Consistency. I frowned. What do you mean? You've maintained the same position from the beginning. No contact with your parents. That matters. That was the first hopeful thing I'd heard all day. But, he continued, you need to stay calm. No outbursts. No aggressive behavior. Nothing that can be used against you. I nodded. Can you do that? I thought about it. About the anger. The fear. Everything boiling inside me. Yeah, I said finally. I can. He studied me for a second. Then nodded. Good. Because this is going to get messy. He wasn't wrong. That evening, it started. I got a message. Not from her. From her dad. We need to discuss this situation like adults. I almost didn't respond. But then another message came. You've disrespected my wife. Raised your voice in our home. And now you're threatening our daughter. My jaw tightened. Threatening. I typed back. I'm protecting my son. His reply came instantly. By trying to take him away from his mother. I exhaled slowly. I'm not taking him away. I'm setting boundaries. A few seconds later, you don't get to make those decisions alone. And there it was. That same mindset. Like I was some outsider. Like I didn't have equal say. I didn't reply. Because I knew where this was going. And I wasn't playing that game. That night, I sat in my apartment. Watching my son sleep. And for the first time, I felt scared. Not of my parents. Not of her. But of losing him. Because no matter how right I knew I was, the system doesn't always work like that. And I didn't have money. I didn't have connections. I didn't have a big supportive family. I just had me, and a promise I made 3 years ago. No one is ever going to hurt you. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and made another decision. I wasn't going to lose this fight. No matter what it took. Because this wasn't about pride. This wasn't about winning. This was about making sure my son never had to grow up the way I did. And if that meant going to court, facing her family, reliving everything I tried to forget, then so be it, because some things, you don't compromise on, ever. The next few days, felt like the calm before something ugly. No screaming, no arguments, no dramatic confrontations, just silence. But it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence where you know something is building behind the scenes. And I wasn't wrong. 2 days later, I got served. Yeah, actually served. A guy showed up at my door, asked my name, and handed me an envelope. I already knew what it was before I opened it. Custody filing. She was officially requesting primary custody. My hands didn't even shake, which scared me more than anything. Because I think, at that point, something inside me had already switched. From reacting, to fighting. I called my lawyer immediately. She filed, I said. I figured she would, he replied calmly. Of course he did. She's asking for primary custody. Standard move, he said. Doesn't mean she'll get it. That helped. A little. What do? We respond. And we prepare. For what? For them to paint you as unstable. I went quiet, because I already knew they were going to try that. You raised your voice, he continued. You have a history you haven't fully documented. And you're trying to restrict family contact. Every word felt like a setup. They're going to argue you're projecting your trauma onto your son. I clenched my jaw. I'm not. I know that, he said. But we have to prove it. That word again. Prove. How? Start documenting everything, he said. Every conversation, every message, every detail about what happened. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. And one more thing. Yeah, if there's anyone who can support your story, now is the time. My mind immediately went to one person. My sister. That night, I called her. She picked up instantly. Hey, what's going on? I hesitated. Then I said it. She filed for custody. Silence. Then, of course she did. I let out a breath. I need your help. You already have it. No hesitation. No questions. Just, there. I might need you to talk about what happened. The line went quiet for a long time, and I immediately regretted asking. You don't have to, I added quickly. No, she said softly. Another pause. I will. My chest tightened. Are you sure? No, she admitted, but then she said something that I'll never forget. But I'm more sure about protecting him. And that was it. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't alone in this. The next day, things escalated. Fast. I got a message from her. Not emotional, not apologetic. Formal. My lawyer will be contacting yours. Please keep communication about our son respectful and documented. I stared at it, because just like that, we weren't a couple anymore. We were opponents. Later that afternoon, I went to pick up my son. It was my day, but this time, her parents were there, waiting. The second I walked up to the door, I could feel it. That tension, that judgment. Her dad opened the door. Didn't smile, didn't greet me, just stepped aside. Come in. I walked in slowly. She was sitting on the couch, holding our son. Her mom stood nearby, watching me like I was a problem that needed to be fixed. I kept my voice calm. I'm here to pick him up. She nodded, didn't argue, but her dad spoke. We need to talk first. I shook my head. No, not without my lawyer. That didn't go over well. This doesn't have to be a legal battle, he said, his voice tightening. It already is. Silence. Then her mom stepped in. You're blowing this out of proportion. There it was again. That same line, like it would magically become true if they said it enough. I didn't respond. You're hurting everyone, she continued. Especially him. I looked at my son. He was watching us, quiet, confused, and that hit harder than anything else. I stepped forward. I'm not doing this here. I gently reached for him. He came to me without hesitation. And that small moment, that trust, it gave me strength I didn't know I needed. As I turned to leave, her dad said one last thing. If you take this to court, it's going to get ugly. I stopped, but didn't turn around. It already is. And then I walked out. That night, something happened that I wasn't prepared for. I was putting my son to bed, reading him a story, trying to keep everything normal. When he suddenly asked, "Are you mad at mommy?" I froze, because no matter how careful we try to be, kids notice everything. I set the book down slowly. No, I said gently. I'm not mad. He looked at me. You were yelling. That one hurt. I know, I said quietly. And I'm sorry you heard that. He stayed quiet for a second, then asked, "Are we still a family?" I felt my throat close. Because how do you answer that? At 3 years old, I pulled him closer. Always, I said, that never changes, even if you don't live together. I blinked, because I never said that out loud. But somehow, he already knew. Even then, I whispered. He nodded slowly, and then, like kids do, he moved on. But I didn't, because that question, that simple, innocent question, it broke something in me all over again. After he fell asleep, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking, planning, because this wasn't just about court anymore. This was about his future. And I needed more than just words. More than just anger. I needed something solid, something undeniable. And that's when I remembered something. Something I hadn't thought about in years. A box, at my sister's place, full of old things, from that house, from that life, things I never wanted to see again. But maybe, just maybe, something in there could help me now. The next morning, I went to get it. And what I found inside changed everything. I hadn't seen that box in years. It was sitting exactly where I left it, in the back of my sister's closet, hidden behind old clothes and things neither of us wanted to deal with. She didn't say anything when I walked in, just looked at me, and knew. "You're ready?" she asked quietly. No, I wasn't, but I nodded anyway, because I didn't have a choice anymore. She pulled the box out slowly, set it on the bed. Neither of us moved for a few seconds. It sounds stupid, but opening that box felt heavier than anything I'd done so far. Because once I opened it, there was no pretending anymore. No more, it wasn't that bad. No more, it's in the past. Just truth. I sat down, lifted the lid, and just like that, I was back there. The first thing I saw was a stack of old photos. Normal ones. At least. They looked normal. Family dinners, birthdays, smiles. The kind of pictures people post online and say, perfect family. I almost laughed, because if anyone saw these, they'd never believe what was happening behind them. I pushed the photos aside. Underneath was a notebook. I froze, because I recognized it immediately. My sister's handwriting. I forgot about that, she said softly. I picked it up slowly. What is it? A journal, she replied. From when I was a teenager. My heart started beating faster. Does it say anything? She nodded. Yeah, I didn't open it right away, because part of me didn't want to know, but I forced myself. The pages were messy, rushed, some words scratched out, but the meaning, crystal clear. Entries about our dad, about the drinking, the anger, the nights that went too far, and then, the things she never told anyone. The kind of details that don't get misunderstood, don't get exaggerated, the kind that stay with you forever. I stopped reading, my hands shaking. This could help, I said quietly. She nodded again. It's not proof, she said. But it's something. Right now, something was everything. Under the journal, there were more things. Old school papers, random junk, and then, a small envelope. I frowned. What's this? My sister's expression changed. I don't remember. I opened it carefully. Inside were 2 photographs. But these weren't normal. They weren't posed. They weren't happy. They were blurry, awkward, taken at weird angles. And the moment I looked closer, my stomach dropped, because I recognized the room. My old bedroom, and in the background, was him, my father. Too close. Way too close. The kind of close that doesn't need explanation. I couldn't breathe. Where did these come from? I asked, my voice barely there. I don't know, she whispered. I swear, I don't remember those. I stared at the photos again. And something clicked. I do. She looked at me. I think I took these. Her eyes widened. What? I remember hiding my phone once. I thought, if I had something, someone would believe me. The room went completely silent. Because that changed everything. This wasn't just memory anymore. This was evidence. Not perfect, not clean, but real. And for the first time since this started, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. That same day, I went straight to my lawyer. He looked through everything carefully. Didn't rush, didn't dismiss it. When he finished, he leaned back and exhaled slowly. This is big. My chest tightened. Is it enough? He nodded slightly. It's not definitive on its own. But combined with testimony, it's powerful. I sat forward. So what does that mean? It means we can argue that your concerns are not just emotional, they're based on documented patterns. That word again, patterns, and the photos, I asked. They raise serious questions, he said, especially if we can establish when they were taken. My mind was racing. Now, so, this helps my case. He looked me straight in the eye. This changes your case. For the first time since everything fell apart, I felt like I wasn't just reacting anymore. I had something solid, something they couldn't just dismiss as overreacting. But that feeling didn't last long. Because that night, I got another message from her, and this one was different. My lawyer said we should consider a temporary custody arrangement. I read it twice. What kind of arrangement? Her reply came quickly. You get weekends. I get weekdays. My stomach dropped. Weekends. That wasn't shared custody. That was losing. No. I typed back immediately. A minute later. Why not? It's fair. Fair. You think it's fair that you make decisions behind my back, take him to dangerous people, and now I only see him 2 days a week. She didn't respond right away. Then, you're making them sound dangerous again. I stared at the screen. Even now, even after everything, she still didn't get it. And maybe, she never would. I put my phone down, looked over at my son, sleeping peacefully, and I realized something. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. This wasn't just a relationship problem. This was 2 completely different realities. Hers, where everything was fine, and mine, where I knew exactly how bad it could get, and there was no middle ground between those. The next step was court. No more avoiding it, no more hoping it resolves itself. Because now, I had something to fight with, and I was going to use it, no matter how hard it got. Because this time, I wasn't just protecting myself. I was protecting him, and I wasn't going to fail. Not again. The court date came faster than I expected. One moment I was preparing. The next, I was standing outside a courtroom at 22 years old, about to fight for my son. I'd imagined this moment 100 different ways. None of them felt real. Until I saw her. She was sitting across the hallway, with her parents, and her lawyer. 3 people, on her side. I had, my lawyer, and my sister. That was it. But somehow, it felt like enough. My sister squeezed my hand. You're not alone, she whispered. And for the first time that day, I believed it. When we walked into the courtroom, everything felt smaller than I expected. Quieter. Like all the noise, all the chaos, all the emotion had to shrink itself to fit inside those walls. The judge didn't look intimidating. Just calm, focused, but that didn't make it easier. Because this person was about to decide my son's future. It started exactly how my lawyer said it would. Her side went first, and just like that, I became the problem. They painted it clean, simple, convincing, overprotective, emotionally reactive, unable to separate past trauma from present reality. I sat there, listening to someone reduce my entire life to a flaw. They talked about her, stable, supported, providing a loving environment. They talked about her parents, involved, reliable, safe. And then, they talked about me again. Raised his voice, escalated conflict, now attempting to limit family connections. Every word felt calculated, because it was. This wasn't about truth. It was about what sounded better. Then, it was our turn. My lawyer stood up, calm, steady, and he didn't start with emotion. He started with facts. Your Honor, this case is not about overreaction. It is about risk. The room felt different immediately. Mr. has maintained consistent boundaries regarding his parents for years. These boundaries were violated without his knowledge. He paused, and more importantly, without his consent. That word hit, consent. He continued. The child was taken, repeatedly, to individuals the father had explicitly identified as unsafe, and was instructed to keep those visits a secret. I saw the judge's expression shift slightly. Not dramatic, but noticeable. Then came the hard part. Your Honor, we would like to present supporting material. My chest tightened, because I knew what was coming next. The journal, the photos, the past, my past, laid out in front of strangers. My sister was called up. And I swear, I've never been more proud of someone in my life. She was nervous, shaking slightly, but she didn't back down. She told the truth, not dramatically, not exaggerated, just, honestly, about our father, about the abuse, about the fear, about why we left. The room was silent, completely silent, because some truths don't need decoration. Then the journal was presented. Pages read aloud, not all of it, just enough to establish a pattern, enough to make it real. And then, the photos. My hands clenched as they were handed over. Because even now, even after all these years, they still made me feel like that kid again. Powerless. The judge studied them carefully. Longer than anything else. And that silence felt louder than anything said so far. Her lawyer tried to push back. Your Honor, these are old, unclear, and not verified. But the damage was already done. Because this wasn't about proving every detail beyond doubt. It was about raising a question. And once that question exists, you can't ignore it. Then came the moment I wasn't expecting. The judge looked at her. Did you have knowledge of these concerns before taking the child to those individuals? She hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. Yes, she said finally. But I didn't believe they were still a risk. The judge nodded slowly. And did you inform the father of these visits? No. Why not? She swallowed. Because I knew he would say no. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Because it wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a choice. The rest of the hearing blurred together. More arguments, more explanations, more attempts to justify. But the core of it was already clear. When it was over, the judge didn't decide immediately. Said they needed time, which somehow was worse. Because now, we had to wait. Those next few days were the longest of my life. Every second felt stretched. Every thought ended the same way. What if I lose? But then, the call came. From my lawyer. I answered immediately. Well, I asked. There was a pause. Just long enough to make my heart stop. Then he said, we won. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, trying to process it. What does that mean? I finally managed. It means you get joint custody, with primary decision-making authority regarding who your child is exposed to. I closed my eyes. And your parents? I asked. Restricted. He said, no contact unless both parents agree. Which meant, they'd never see him again. Not without my consent. And that was everything. I thanked him, hung up, and just sat there for a long time. Because after everything, all the fear, all the anger, all the doubt, it was over. Later that day, I saw her, just the two of us. No lawyers, no parents. She looked different, tired, quieter. I didn't think it would end like this, she said softly. Me neither. Silence. Then she asked, do you hate me? I thought about it, really thought about it, because for a while, I did, but now, no, I said honestly. She looked surprised. I just don't trust you anymore. That hurt her. I could see it, but it was the truth. We'll figure out co-parenting, I added. For him. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt him. I know, and I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't respond to that. Because intentions Don't erase actions. We stood there for a moment. Two people who used to love each other. Now just connected by a child. That night, I tucked my son into bed. Same as always. Same story. Same routine. But this time, something felt different. Lighter. Safer. As I turned off the light, he looked up at me and asked, "Are we okay now?" I smiled. "Yeah," I said softly. "We're okay." And for the first time since all of this started, I knew that was true. Because I kept my promise. No one was going to hurt him. Not even the past. End.